Good morning to all. Welcome to Class 10 Crash Course presented by Sigma e-learning Smart Way to Excellence. Those who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe the channel. Don't forget to share, like and comment. The topic we'll discuss today is Class 10 Economics. The topic title is Sectors of the Economy. Economy of any country depends on mostly three sectors. They are primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Primary sector is any activities which are directly depends on natural resources like land, water, air, forest, like this. In primary sector, people use the natural resource directly to produce the goods like farming, fishing and mining. Let's say in farming sector, land is the natural resources and also groundwater also the natural resources. So farming come under the primary sector. In fishing, water is the major contributor. So fishing also come under the primary sector. Then come to the mining. Mining also mostly depends on geology of the land. So this is also come under the primary sector. So simply the primary sector is the activities which are directly depends on natural resources like land, water, geology and forestry. The secondary sector is activities which convert raw material into the finished goods, where raw materials are turned into finished goods like in factories and industries. Let's say for example, in steel industry, the raw material is iron ore. This iron ore converted into the finished steels like steel blocks, steel rods or automobile body. In this manner, the raw material converted into the finished goods. So, iron industry is come under the secondary sector. What is tertiary sector? Simply, tertiary sector is a service sector, which means it is providing certain services to the public or any organization or any industry. It doesn't producing any goods or any physical commodity. Simply, it providing a service to the commodity or organization or the people. It supports primary and secondary sectors by offering services like transport, communication, banking, education, healthcare, tourism, government jobs and hotels. So this all under the service sector category. Why? Because they are not producing any goods or they are not producing commodity physically, but they are giving the service to the organization or an industry or to the public. So this is all about the definition of primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Economy is a complex system involving production, distribution, consumption. Any economy in the world, it must be depends on production, distribution and consumption. Any economy in the world depends on production, distribution, consumption. This production, distribution and consumption act as a cycle. Let's say for example, the finished product which we are using in this classroom like table, pen, paper, the digital board, all are made in a factory. These factory made goods are distributed to the public by a channel. That channel is the transportation. After distribution, after distribution, the next stage is consumption. Consumption means the using the commodity which are distributed to us. After the consumption, some waste material will be produced. Again, this waste material again go into the stage of production. In this manner, the production, distribution, consumption is a cyclic process in any economy of the world. Take a smartphone. The smartphone is made in this production stage. This smartphone is distributed to the mobile shop through the transportation. Again, from this distribution stage, the consumption stage. Consumption stage means the consumer or the customer who buying that mobile. He use certain time. After that, he'll throw out if it is damaged. Again, this damaged mobile again went to the production stage. In this manner, the production, distribution, consumption is the cyclic process in any economy of the world. Primary sector. We know that primary sector is directly depends on natural resources like water, land, air, forest, like this. So the primary sector initially provide the raw material, food security and employment. Simply, the primary sector consists of agriculture sector, forestry, fishing, mining, quarrying. Quarrying also come under the category of mining. So all these activities are directly depends on the natural resources. So I can call them as the primary sector. Then come to the natural resources. Land, water, mineral. In early development stage, there is no automation, there is no industrialization. During that period, lot of people are depending on the only on agriculture. Why? Because they don't know any other activity to do. So during the development stage, large population engaged in the primary sector. Even during the early economic growth also, majority of people depends directly on the primary sector. Why? Because at that time there is no machinery, there is no alternative employment, there is no surplus production. So majority of people depends on the primary sector during that time. In secondary sector, manufacturing, production, processing, construction, value addition, they all are come under the secondary sector. Now we'll discuss the tertiary sector. What are the services offered in the service sector or tertiary sector? The first thing is the information sector, information technology. The internet we are using right now, and also artificial intelligence technology, what right now we are using, like chat GPT, Facebook, Instagram, all under the category of information technology. It provides the software development and IT support. So it's a kind of service. So information technology is a kind of service sector. Then come to the tourism. When the people have a lot of money in their pocket, what they can do? They plan certain tourism activities. They plan to go outside when they have sufficient income in their pocket. So this is also come under the service sector. Why? Because here they doesn't producing any commodity, but they are enjoying the climate. They are enjoying the beauty of the nature. They are traveling from one location to another location. So the tourism also come under the tertiary sector. It provides travel and hospitality services. Then come to the education. Education also a service sector. Why? Because in the education sector, the teacher delivering the knowledge he have to the student. Now, communication sector. The communication sector also a service sector. Why? Because a telephone, internet, postal service, all are under the communication sector. They are giving certain service to the people. Banking. In banking also, they are giving the service of credit, employment, loans, deposits. So it's a kind of service to the public. Here, in any of these activities, they are not producing any goods, but they are providing the service. So all these activities are come under the tertiary sector or the service sector. Interdependence. Interdependence means the dependency of primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector one upon them. So how they are interconnected, how they are interdependent with each other. Let's say, for example, a steel industry depends on raw materials like coal, iron ore, oxygen. These all are the three major raw materials to produce the steel. So the coal, iron ore are produced in the primary sector. So the finished product in this primary sector, like iron ore or coal, transported to the secondary sector. Here, the secondary sector converted this raw material into the finished product. In this manner, the primary sector and secondary sector interdependent with each other. Here, the service sector connecting the primary sector and secondary sector. Let's say, for example, the transportation. By the transportation, raw material moving from mining location to the industry. In this manner, the transportation is the service sector. So the service sector connecting the primary sector as well as the secondary sector. So in this manner, the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector or the service sector interconnected with each other. No sector is independently contribute to the economy. So every sector is interdependent. See, the primary sector supplies the raw material to the secondary sector. In secondary sector, the processing of raw material into the goods. In tertiary sector, it provides the essential services to the primary sector as well as the tertiary secondary sector. These three all together contribute to the development of the any nation, the organized and unorganized sector. In organized sector, the people have or employees have social security benefit like regular salaries, healthy work culture, time to time work, sufficient leisure hours, healthcare facilities, proper safety and security in workplace. These kind of facilities are enjoyed by the organized sector. But in the case of unorganized sector, they are facing lot of vulnerabilities that are lack of job security, irregular working condition or irregular working hours, no social securities like pensions and government schemes. Gross domestic product. What is gross domestic product? Simply, the gross domestic product is the value of the final goods and services produced in each sector during the particular year. If a country produces 1000 rupees of goods, 500 rupees of services in 1 year, I can call 1500 rupees is the GDP of that particular country. So what I am done here, I just added the final value of goods and services produced in that country in particular 1 year period. Through the evolution of history or through the evolution of time, these sectors have been undergoing certain changes. They are called historical changes in the economic sectors. We will discuss one by one here. The first thing is agriculture sector from dominance to decline. In pre-industrial societies, agriculture output constituted a large share of GDP due to limited technological advancement and basic needs for the food and raw material. In pre-industrial period means the time where we doesn't have any industrial revolution. At that time, majority of the people directly depends on the agriculture. Why? Because we don't have any alternative work at that time. So majority of people depends on the agriculture. So agriculture is the major dominant sector in the pre-industrial societies. After industrial revolution, the agriculture sector drastically reduced in Western countries like European countries. Why? Because after industrialization, so many agriculture laborers started to work in industries. So they left the agriculture sector. Start adapting industrial sector. Because of this reason, the agriculture sector started to decline in Western world. In early stage means pre-industrial revolution stage, subsistence farming is dominance. Subsistence farming means any agriculture produce consumed by themselves. They doesn't have any surplus produce to sell in the market. It's called subsistence farming. Limited production, poor mechanization. In the pre-industrial societies, subsistence farming is dominance and limited production and poor mechanization. Because of three reasons, majority of people depends on agriculture. After industrialization, the scenario is changed a lot. After industrial revolution, mechanization is started, improved seeds and fertilizers, productivity of agriculture is raised, surplus production is started, agriculture labor started to work in industries. All the agriculture labor moved to industrial sector. So the people who depends on agriculture is declined. So this is the one reason. The mechanization. When the mechanization is improved, the requirement of people is reduced. Why? Because all the agriculture labor work is done by the machines. So the people who work as agriculture labor shifted to the industrial labor. After the mechanization and innovation, after some innovations, the seeds and fertilizers efficiency has been increased and productivity of the agriculture land is raised. Surplus production is started. Agriculture labor started to work in the industries. So this is the transformation in agriculture sector from the pre-industrial societies to the industrial revolution and the beyond. This technological improvement resulted in mechanization of agriculture. So when the agriculture is mechanized, the requirement of agriculture labor is reduced. This reduced agriculture labor moved to the industrial sector and urbanization. When the industrialization started improved, the people moved to urban areas from the rural areas to work in industries. It led to the migration to the urban areas and they started to searching for the better opportunities than the agriculture. So this is also one major reason. Changing the consumption pattern means the behavior of the consumer is changed over the years. Let's say, for example, during the pre-industrial period, the major commodity he consumed is food grains. Once the industrialization raised, once the mechanization started, once the mass production started, people started to get cheap goods. As well as the income is increased because of the mechanization as well as skilled labor. Reduced on food spending. The another factor is trade liberalization. Trade liberalization means the production in one country easily available into the another country. Because of this reason, so many cheap products or low cost products have been imported from one country to another country. People easily buy them because of the cheapest cost and increased imports because of the lowest cost. So because of the increased imports, comparative advantages, people start to left the agriculture sector. The technological advancement, urbanization, changing in the consumption pattern, trade liberalization. These are the major 4 factors contributed to decline in agriculture sector. In 18th century, industrial revolution started in England. Due to industrialization, mechanization improved. The mass production is raised. New technologies such as steam engine or power looms revolutionized the production process, leading to increased output and efficiency. It experienced rapid growth in 19th and 20th century, driven by technological innovations like mass production techniques and expanding the global trade. Manufacturing became the engine of economic growth in many countries. What are the drivers of industrial expansion? We'll discuss one by one here. The technological innovation, let's say power looms, steam engine, drastically changed the transportation process and the textile sector. These new technologies boosted the efficiency and output in the industry. Economies of the scale, mass production lower the cost, enhancing the industrial competitiveness. When the mass production started, the competitiveness is increased drastically. It lowered the cost of the production. When the cost of the production is low, people start to buy more goods. Why? Because the cost is very less. Urbanization. People started to migrate from rural areas to urban areas where the industry is located. In this manner, urbanization also acts as a one factor for the industrial growth. Global trade. Let's say, for example, when the England is peak in industrial revolution, India is still depends on agriculture sector. During this period, so many cheap commodities flooded into the India. Many people started to buy England goods instead of domestic goods. Why? Because in India we doesn't have any industrial revolution. Because of this reason, the cost of the same material is high in India, but the cost of the imported good is very cheap. Why? Because the cost of production is very cheap in England. Why? Because they have the automation, they have the mass production, they have the equipment, they have the machineries. So in this manner, the industrial expansion led to the improvement in the secondary sector. Even though there is a lot of improvement in industrial sector, this industrial sector has certain challenges. They are automation. Automation means the mass production of goods with the cheap labor or with less amount of the labor. This automation led to loss of employment in industrial labor. It reduced the labor demand, it increased the efficiency. When the efficiency of machines increase, the requirement of the labor is reduced. So when the labor requirement is reduced, the labor need to shift from industrial sector to some other sector. Why? Because industrial sector doesn't need their skill or doesn't need their work. Why? Because all their work has been replaced by the machines. Another challenge is environmental concerns. During the period of industrial revolution, so many environmental damage has occurred. Significant environmental impact. Why? Because every industry produces the waste. The waste is directly released into the water, air or land. So increase the regulation and cost. Increased regulation means if any industry release toxic chemical to the water bodies, again we need to spend certain amount to filter that water body. So in this manner, it increase the regulation and cost. Globalization. Globalization also acts as a major challenge in the industrial sector. Why? Because it increased the competition from low wage countries. I have already discussed that. When the Western countries producing cheapest goods, the same good in India, production cost is very high. In this manner, developing countries has less advantage of competitiveness during that period. Pressure on the domestic industries. Why? Because people started to buy imported cheap products instead of domestic goods high. So in this manner, the industrial sector also have certain challenges. The service sector, the dominant force. The service sector experienced a rapid growth in recent decades, driven by factors like rising the income, changing the consumer preferences, and technological advancements. Let's imagine a situation. If you have very less amount of money, where you can spend? The first thing is we can spend on food. The second thing we can spend on house. The third thing is we can spend on clothing. The fourth thing is we can spend on Education. If in the case we have a lot of money in our pocket, what we can do? We can spend on tourism, we can spend on entertainment, we can spend on education in abroad. When the people have a lot of money in their pocket, they started to demanding lot of services like good health, good education, entertainment, tourism, like this. When the income of the people or income of the public is rising, they are changing the consumption preference. Why? Because when we have 30 to 40,000 salary, we prefer the smartphone, which is 20 to 30,000 rupees. If we have 1 lakh to 2 lakh salary per month, we prefer the iPhone. Here we can say that by increasing the income, people start to change the consumer preferences. See, the cycle of sectoral growth is when the people rise the income, they start to demand other services like health, good education, tourism, entertainment, banking in this manner. They change the preferences. They demand the good health care, they demand the higher education in abroad, they demand the best entertainment, they demand the best tourism services, they demand the luxurious goods. Technological advancements, new opportunities will be raised, which means if the artificial intelligence rise, we have new opportunities will be unlocked. If we have the coding code, if we have the coding skills, new opportunities will be unlocked for us compared to the person who doesn't know the coding skills. In this manner, the technological advancements increase the new opportunities in service-based business, software jobs, social media influencers, YouTubers. These all are service sectors. Globalization. In the globalization also, increase the international trade in services led to imports and exports and labor migration. So in this manner, globalization, rising in income, changing the consumer preferences, technological advancements, or all are work as a cycle in the process of growth of the service sector. What are the characteristics of the service sector? Majorly, the service sector have 4 characteristics. First characteristic is the intangibility. Intangibility means the services provided in the service sector, we cannot touch them, we cannot feel them physically, we cannot touch as any other commodity. So they are intangible in nature. Heterogeneity. Heterogeneity means they are different with each other. Let's say, for example, a person who has a lot of money, he prefer business class in the flight. If the people have less money, he prefer economy class in the same flight. Means there is a heterogeneity of traveling. In this manner, services are often customized to meet the specific needs of the individual customers. Inseparability. Inseparability means they cannot be separate. So the services cannot be separated as production stage or consumption stage. So production and consumption of the services often occur simultaneously. In primary sector and secondary sector, we can able to differentiate the raw material and finished goods. But in the case of service sector, we cannot separate them. So this is inseparable. Perishability. Services cannot be stored in a future use. Sectoral shift in GDP contribution. In this slide, we will discuss sectoral shift in the GDP contribution in developed countries and developing countries. In developed countries, once the industrial sector developed, people start to secondary sector. Once the secondary sector is well developed, people started to tertiary sector. In this manner, developed countries transformed their economy from primary sector to secondary, secondary to tertiary sector. But in the case of developing countries, they directly came from primary sector to tertiary sector. Why? Because when the industrial revolution peak in the Western world or in European countries, developing countries like India still depends on agriculture sector. During this period, so many cheap goods imported into India. Their cost of production is very less compared to the same good which is produced in India. So people attracted to buy imported goods because they are cheap compared to the domestic goods. So at that situation, so many people started business. Business means started to selling the imported goods. Simply they are moved from agriculture societies to the tertiary sector or service sector. Simply that's the business. The business sector also called as the service sector. So in this manner, in developing countries, they are directly shifted from primary dominated economies to tertiary dominated economies. India also came under the same category. India also directly shifted from primary sector to tertiary sector. In this slide, we'll discuss the contribution of primary, secondary, tertiary sectors in terms of GDP. We have two figures in here. The one figure is drawn in 1973-74 period. The second figure drawn in 2013 and 14 period. There is a 40 years of gap between these two figures. Carefully examine these two figures. In the period of 73-74, the contribution of primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector almost the same. There is little bit difference between the primary, secondary and tertiary sector in the period of 73-74. Okay. Then coming to the period of 2013-14. In this period means after 40 years, service sector increased drastically. The secondary sector improved marginally and the primary sector also improved marginally. We can conclude some points from this given figure. The first conclusion is in 1973-74, the primary sector contributed to the most of the GDP. See here, in 73-74 period, what is the dominance here? The primary sector is the dominated here. So that's the one conclusion. By 2013 and 14, the tertiary sector became the dominant contributor. See, compare this figure and this figure. In this figure, primary sector is dominant factor. But in this figure, the tertiary sector is the dominant factor. So we can conclude that by the 2013-14, the tertiary sector became the dominant factor in economy of India. Indian economy has shifted from agrarian economy to service oriented economy. In the 40 years, Indian economy shifted from agricultural dominance to service based dominance country. So I can say Indian economy has shifted from agrarian economy to service based economy. This is the another conclusion I can draw from this figure. Growth is occurred in all the sectors, but this growth is uneven. So tertiary sector grow the most, the primary sector showed the least growth. Agricultural contribution GDP has been decreased drastically. See here. Let us analyze another graph with regard to Indian economy. The share of three sectors in the percentage of GDP. Again, observe carefully these two figures. In 73-74 period, the agriculture contribution or primary sector contribution is 40% of the GDP. Secondary sector contribution is nearly 10 to 12% of the GDP. Tertiary sector contribution is almost 50 to 60% of the contribution. The same sector drastically changed in the 2013-14. Primary sector contribution has decreased drastically. See here. This is the primary sector contribution in 73. This is the primary sector contribution in 2013 and 14. So the primary sector contribution has decreased drastically in terms of the percentage of the GDP, and the contribution of service sector increased drastically in terms of GDP percentage, and secondary sector contribution increased just marginally. There is no lot of improvement. They are just improved. So from this figure, I can conclude four conclusions here. The primary sector contribution drastically decreased from 40% to 10 to 15% of GDP 1973 to 2013. There is a marginal growth in secondary sector, that is 10% of GDP to 18% of GDP in 40 years. India experienced service-led growth rather than the typical industrialization first. India experienced service-led growth rather than depending on industrial-led growth. Tertiary sector became the most dominant contributor in 2013-14. It covered more than 60% of the GDP. See here, lot of contribution of tertiary sector in the GDP. So these all are the four conclusions I can draw from the given figure. See another graph here. The graph describes the share of sectors in employment in terms of percentage. During the period of 1977, primary sector contributes 71% of the employment. Secondary sector contribute only 7% of the employment. Service sector contribute 18% of the employment, which means during the period of 1977, out of 100 employees, 71 employees are working in the primary sector, 11 people out of 100 working in secondary sector, 18 employees out of 100 employees working in tertiary sector. This is the scenario in the 1778 and 1777. What is the employment scenario in 2017 and 18? Simply, there is a drastic change employment in primary sector during 1977 and employment in 2017. See here, there is a drastic change. In the period of 1977, 71% of the employees work depends on primary sector. In 2017, only 44% of people are depending on primary sector. There is a drastic decrease in the primary sector contribution in terms of employment. But in secondary sector, the scenario is different. Why? Because in 1977, only 11% of the people working in industrial sector. But in 2017 and 18, 25% of the people employed in secondary sector. So there is an improvement in secondary sector compared to the 1777. Then coming to the tertiary sector, in tertiary sector also there is an improvement from 18% to 31% in 40 years of gap. So these are the major observations I can draw from this figure. I can list out these conclusions point by point. The first point is primary sector still dominant employment. Employment in primary sector very marginally decreased from 71% to 44% in the 40 years of period. It's showing disguised and underemployment. Agriculture field required 100 employees or 100 agriculture labor, but the same agriculture field employed by 500 agriculture labor. Actually, 100 agriculture labor sufficient for that agriculture plot, but 500 people are depending on them, means remaining 400 people are unnecessary to work there. So this kind of situation I can call it as a disguised unemployment, means the employment or the labor working there more than requirement. Significant rise in tertiary sector employment from 18% in 77 to 31% in 2018. There is significant rise in tertiary sector. The third conclusion is secondary sector employment increased from 11% to 25% in 40 years from 77 to 2018. Secondary sector employment is more than doubled here. There is a moderate growth in industrial and manufacturing jobs. By careful examination of this figure, we can conclude that there is a mismatch between the GDP contribution and employment share. That is, the primary sector has the highest employment but lowest contribution. See here, the primary sector has highest employment, that is 44%, but their contribution of GDP is only 15%. Tertiary sector has highest GDP share, that is 60%, but their employment is 31%. This indicates low productivity in agriculture and high productivity in services. This indicates low productivity in agriculture and high productivity in services. In this slide, we will discuss strategies for creating more employment. To create more employment, we need to address challenges in every sector to create more employment. First, we need to identify the challenges in every sector. After that, we need to tackle the challenges. Then only we can able to create more employment in that particular sector. For that, we need multi-pronged approach is needed. Focus on each sector and addressing the specific challenges they faced. What are the strategies for strengthening the primary sector? We'll discuss one by one here. To strengthen the primary sector employment, we need to address challenges of irrigation and infrastructure. We need to develop proper dams, canals, ponds, drip irrigation, rural roads, high yield variety seeds, fertilizers. Then only primary sectors like agriculture or agriculture related sectors will be developed. Why? Because agriculture and allied sector mostly depends on canals, ponds, dams, especially the water as well as groundwater, drip irrigation, fertilizers and high quality seeds, storage infrastructure. If we develop all of them, automatically agriculture and allied sector will be developed as well as employment will be increased. Another challenge we need to tackle is sufficient credit and insurance facility to the farmer. Affordable credit means we need to give institutional credit, institutional loans from the banks. Why? Because every year hundreds of farmers are got suicide because of lack of money, because of uncontrolled debts, because of failure of crops, because of money related harassment. So many farmers have been got suicide. Diversify the agriculture. Diversifying agriculture means we need to use the same land in multiple ways. Let's say, for example, we need to use the same land for the horticulture, animal husbandry and fisheries. We need to develop rural industries like food processing, handicrafts, textiles. We need to develop food processing industries near to the agriculture fields. Why? Because perishable goods like tomato, onion and vegetables easily converted into processed foods. We need to provide fair prices to the production of the farmer. For that, government need to take initiative. We have already minimum support price for the farmers, but it is applicable for the only some products only. We need market reforms. In this slide, we will discuss strategies for the secondary sector growth. The first strategy is infrastructure development. To develop any industry, power, roads, machinery, transport, communication is the most important factors. To develop any industry, we need to develop power, roads, machinery, transport and communication. Skill development. We need to give proper training to the employers or employees and industrial labor. We need to provide proper awareness, self-care, quick decision making capacity. We need to improve the ease of doing business. Means we need to reduce the regulatory burdens, easy taxation, credit support to the investors. Investment in technology. We need to promote new technologies like artificial intelligence, automation, mass production, IT revolution, like this. Support for small and medium enterprises. We need to give them proper credit support, market access and subsidies. Promotion of export-oriented industries, encouraging the industries to export the products for the economic growth. Tertiary sector job creation. To create the jobs or employment in tertiary sector, we need to focus more on education, health, tourism, information technology. Why? Because majority of employment concentrated in education, healthcare, information and technology. To improve the health and education, we need to invest in these three sectors, improve the human capital and create the employment. We need to invest in tourism promotion. Promoting tourism, create the jobs in hotels, restaurants and transportation. Information technology. These sectors drive the employment growth with the infrastructure and skill development, especially in the software sector or coding sector. We need to promote the financial services like loans, insurance services, expand the sector to create the jobs in the banking and insurance. Entrepreneurial development. We need to encourage the entrepreneurs. We need to motivate the entrepreneurs to get more startups. Encouraging the entrepreneurship leads to the new business and new jobs. Compared to organized employees, unorganized employees face lot of discrimination, lot of challenges. In this slide, we will discuss multi-pronged approach to unorganized workers protection. There, we need to address the vulnerabilities of unorganized sector laborers or unorganized sector employees. We need to provide proper social security like timely wages or eligibility for the social welfare schemes, job security, adequate wages, safety and security in the workplace, promoting the rights, no gender discrimination in workplace, equal wages, dignity of work, enhance the well-being. We need to implement the labor laws, easy registration of new startups, we need to provide health insurance, skill development, awareness to the unorganized sector labor.